Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for risking your lives, risking your work schedules, risking Austin traffic and parking to be here. And most importantly, risking the possibility of being inspired this morning. I have this quote up to start because one, it's my favorite quote, and two, because it has our key word for today, risk. Risk, risk, risk. And a show of hands, whose first time is it to Creative Mornings? Oh my gosh. Welcome, especially to you new kids. Round of applause, please. Oh. 2 years ago, I sat exactly where you are now at my first Creative Mornings. And the theme that month was sex. And I thought, can't get enough of that, I'll go. And as I sat there, I was so captivated by the speaker, her story, the music, the tacos, the being up before work on a Friday morning to listen to somebody talk about creativity. What is this magic? I want to be a part of that. I have a story to tell. Who do I know in my Austin network that can get me an introduction? Except when I finally met Ben, I looked a little more like this. Okay, that's a little dramatic. I looked a little bit like this. Yes. Bright-eyed and freshly shaven. And I told Ben this epic story about how I shaved my head. I never thought I'd be brave enough to do it. How hair is tied to identity, and I didn't need that anymore. I was liberated, nothing to hide behind. And as God is my witness, I understood what true beauty really meant. And Ben was like, okay. Let's see if we can find you a theme. And I thought, yes, a theme, all right. 2 years later, here I am. Except now the story from that girl to this girl is a little different. Because what if I were to tell you that later that year, on Thanksgiving night, that girl would be on the phone with the suicide prevention hotline? Because I lost a friend earlier that year to suicide, and I really wasn't coping with it very well. Mental illness, depression, and suicidal ideation, they run in my family. I know them very well. I've had a handle on my own for a few years, and I had a pretty good handle on it at the time, but then when my friend died, something totally broke open. And I didn't know how bad it got until I was sitting with my family on Thanksgiving, and all I wanted to do was just run away, screaming as fast as possible in any direction. But instead, I went into my room and I closed my door. And I got on the phone. I was shaking violently, desperate for somebody to talk to, somebody to understand, to just listen. That wasn't my friends or my family that didn't want to try to fix me, to just hear me. So I got on the phone, and this woman answered, and she says, "Hello. How can I help you this evening? Are you or anyone you with experienced in a crisis?" And I was like, "Yeah, I am." She said, "Oh, you? I'm so sorry. Tell me about that. What's going on?" "Oh, I'm so sorry. Your friend died? How did that go? How are you doing? Tell me about it. Tell me a little bit more." And I realized, as she kept asking me questions and I could hear myself answering her questions, she could not help me. She could not help me in the same way that I could not help my friend. And with the sinking feeling, I realized nobody could. And I got off the phone and I sobbed. I sobbed for my friend, and I sobbed because I knew that she would not want me to be like that. She would want me to get through it, even if she couldn't. And that's when I knew the only person I could save was myself. So I said, "God, I don't know how I'm supposed to do this, but I'm going to try." So I finished my semester. I was in graduate school at the time, barely finished it, and a professor of mine actually took notice. He was like, "You're like not engaged anymore. What's going on?" And so I talked to him. I told him a little bit. And I said, I really don't know where I'm going right now. And he said, "It sounds to me like sometimes we're looking for answers that are not yet ready to be revealed." So I finished the year, spent the holidays with my family, and as the new year approached, I came across this article. And I'm asked a bunch of questions to ponder as one is crossing into the new year, and a couple of them stood out to me. The first one was, how can I let go of my need for fixed answers in favor of aliveness? What is my next challenge in daring to be human? So I grabbed my journal and I wrote down, say yes, be open. And a couple days after the new year, I get a phone call, actually a Skype call from a friend of mine named Mechi. She's from Argentina. And she and I and another friend of ours, Margarita, we all lived together in Salvador Bahia, Brazil 6 years ago. And Margarita was getting married last March, and I was going to go to the wedding. And Mechi was calling because she had an idea. She said, hey, since you're coming, why don't we go on a road trip back to where we used to live in Brazil? And I was like, no, no, I don't want to go back to Brazil. I was in this place in my life where I had this pattern. When one chapter closed, no, I'm done. I don't want to go back. But what did I just say I would do more of? So I said, sure, why not? And I didn't know what I was saying yes to. I didn't know that I was saying yes to 5,000 kilometers, 3,100 miles up the South American continent. I didn't know that I was saying yes to going in a rickety old van that at that moment was currently sitting in her parents' backyard on cinder blocks with grass growing around it. Hadn't been moved in years, and somehow in the 7 weeks before I was supposed to get there, she was going to magically resurrect it to be fit enough for our grand adventure to the north of Brazil. I didn't know any of that. I just said yes. So I went. We reunited. It was lovely. 2 days after the wedding, Mechi and I, that's Mechi, Margarita, Mechi and I took off in the beautiful Carlota, who was a 1992 Fiat Ducato, a husky Italian girl. And they really just don't make girls like her anymore, let alone her parts, let alone trying to get them to rural Argentina. As a matter of fact, on a few occasions, mechanics handmade parts for her. Yes. But despite her outward appearance, she was rather cozy. With a queen-size bed, storage, that brown trunk thing was our refrigerator, faux hardwood floors, curtains, the whole 9 yards, all of this interiorly designed by Mechi. The best part wasn't her looks. What was actually under her hood. If any of you guys had the opportunity to look under her hood, I guarantee you would go, my God, how is she even running? And the answer to that is faith. Pure, clean, environmentally friendly faith. Even her battery wasn't properly secured, and it would jostle around when we would drive, and the cables were frayed, that connected to it. And I was like, Mechi, why aren't we, fixing that? And she says, Amelia, this is Argentina. We don't do preventative maintenance. We only fix things when they break. Which, of course, meant she broke down many times. Many, many, many times. Even once fantastically in the middle of Avenida de Mayo in Buenos Aires, which, if you haven't been, is basically the equivalent of Times Square in New York City on a Saturday night at 9 o'clock. I could not have written it better. I just remember sliding into the avenue, sputtering, dying, and not being aware at all if there was traffic coming. I just immediately jumped out, ran to the back, started pushing, and Mechi was trying to crank her up. And finally she took off, and I ran after them, did the Little Miss Sunshine thing, and ran next to them, jumped in, only to turn into the next block, sputter, die again. Cranked her up, died again, cranked her up, died again. 20 blocks later, it's like, Mechi, please just stop. We're going to explode. I just know we're going to die. And she's like, hold on. Let's give her one more chance. One more block later, died. Next to a mechanic. Of course. After we got her back up and running again, we continued on, sailed on, to the border of Argentina and Brazil. We got to visit the waterfalls of Iguazu. And here we are at the bottom of one. And there are many waterfalls, many different heights and sizes and shapes, and it was amazing. But the most famous waterfall is called La Garganta del Diablo, or the Devil's Throat. And people say that when you're standing there on the edge, looking into the throat, and the vapor is rising, coughing, puffing, spitting back up at you, that the fantasy of suicide increases. And standing there, I could see what they meant. It would be so easy to just slide over the edge into the nothingness below. A little too easy, in fact. It's actually quite slippery, and the railing system is kind of low. They should really consider upgrading it. Yep. But I stood there, mesmerized, getting more and more soaked with the rising mist. And I realized it's a choice. It's a choice to live fully with all of it, everything, every day. And I thought of my friend then, and I just thought, you would have loved this. So after Iguazu, we carried on to the north of Brazil. After 5 weeks, we were almost to Salvador. We could taste it. On that Saturday, the Saturday before I was supposed to arrive, I was supposed to catch my flight to go back to Austin. We woke up right, rejuvenated, ready for the day. We could taste Salvador, taste the coconut water, see the sunset from our favorite spot. We did not have to stop that morning. We did not have to take a break. But we were driving along. We see a sign that says, "Free Wi-Fi, hot lunch, come meet us." And I looked at Mechi and I was like, I don't know, free Wi-Fi. We drove a little bit more, another sign, "You haven't missed us yet. Stop now, turn now, exit now." And we looked at each other and we said, sure, why not? And in my opinion, what was about to happen probably would not have happened because, you guys, Carlota was doing so good in those last few days. She was winding, gliding up and down hills and mountains and valleys around 18-wheelers. She was spectacular. But because we went from a dead stop and ascended this steep, cobbly hill, this was the last picture I took before, you guessed it, Carlota died one more time. One last time of the trip. There was even a little sign to let us know just exactly how far we come and how far left we had to go. But we broke down in an oasis in front of this really beautiful inn with really helpful people that were ready to help. They even called a mechanic, and the mechanic came, and he said, "We have 4 options. I'm either going to come back or I won't." Or you're going to call me and I won't come back. Or I'm going to call you and I won't come back. Needless to say, day before Easter Sunday, 3 out of 4, he didn't come back. Which meant that I had to leave Mechi behind. So the next day, on Easter Sunday, I caught a bus to Salvador, left her behind, and caught my flight back to Austin on Tuesday. And when I was coming back, you guys, I was so ready to be back in Austin. I was so ready to be back to my life. I landed, my roommate came to pick me up, and we were driving back into the city, and I was like, oh my God, I have to keep going. I have to keep going. I have to keep going. So 5 weeks later, I sold all my things, packed up my car, and headed west. Way west. Way, way, way west. And when I finally got to Canada, I met a couple of Canadian women from Okotoks, and they asked me, wow, what's the most surprising thing about your journey so far? And I said, geez, I don't know, the kindness of strangers, how there's always somebody willing to help, how we always had a place to sleep, whether it was on the side of the road or at a gas station. And they said, wow, I don't think I could have done that. I don't think I could have done that as a young single woman with her young single woman friend up the South American continent in a rickety old van. I don't think I could have driven that far. And that was the most surprising thing to me. Because they said, I don't think I could have been brave enough. And to me, I never felt like I was being brave. I just felt like I was doing the next thing. But if being brave means learning to trust the process of living, then I would say, okay. Because what I have learned is this: the answers that are waiting to be revealed sometimes might look a little like this. Thank you. If anybody's curious about Mechi, did she make it back? How's she doing? How's Carlota? She's doing quite well. She spent 9 months in Carlota. She went further to the north of Brazil. We left last March. She made it back to Argentina in December. And the part of the story that I actually left out is that Mechi came to surprise me in Austin 2 summers ago. And on our road trip, she gave me the honor of shaving her head. Thanks.